There is a country in the Caribbean, a small island nation, that the world had given up on: Haiti. By the year 2024, Haiti had become a place of nightmares. Armed criminal gangs controlled the streets. They controlled the roads. They controlled the hospitals, the markets, the schools. They had taken over 80% of the capital city, Port-au-Prince, and they ruled it with machetes, machine guns, and terror. It had not always been this way. But in July 2021, President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated inside his own bedroom in the middle of the night. The country lost its leader, its direction, and what little stability it had left. No elections were held, no new government took firm control, and into that empty space, that vacuum of power, the gangs rushed in. They were not ordinary street criminals. These were organized, armed militias with military-grade weapons, rocket launchers, assault rifles, armored vehicles stolen from the police. They had names. They had commanders. And the most feared of them all was a man known by a single nickname: Barbecue. His real name was Jimmy Cherizier, a former police officer turned warlord. He united several major gangs under one coalition called Vivre Ensemble, which in Haitian Creole means living together. There was nothing peaceful about it. Under his leadership, entire neighborhoods were burned to the ground. Civilians were massacred. Women, children, the elderly. Nobody was spared. The Haitian National Police, the only law enforcement the country had, were overwhelmed. There were just 9,000 officers for a country of 11 million people. To put that in perspective, the city of New York alone has 36,000 police officers for 8 million residents. Haitian officers were being ambushed, killed, and simply quitting. Because what was the point of fighting a war you could not win? By early 2024, the gangs had done something that seemed impossible. They shut down the international airport. Port-au-Prince's main airport, the only major entry point into the country, was seized. For nearly 3 months, no commercial flights could land. Haiti was cut off from the world. The United Nations held emergency meetings. The international community called for action. But when it came time to actually send people, to actually go into those streets and fight, everyone went quiet. The United States had tried before, in the 1990s, and left behind a complicated legacy. The United Nations had run a peacekeeping mission in Haiti from 2004 to 2017, and that mission had ended in disgrace. UN peacekeepers were found responsible for introducing a cholera outbreak that killed thousands, and there were serious allegations of sexual abuse. Nobody wanted to repeat that history. Nobody wanted the responsibility. Nobody wanted to send their sons and daughters into a city controlled by gang warlords. And then, Kenya raised its hand. Kenyan President William Ruto stood before the international community and said something simple and extraordinary. He said, "Kenya will lead this mission. Kenya will go." It was not a popular decision at home. A Kenyan judge immediately ruled the deployment unconstitutional, saying that Parliament had not given proper approval. Opposition politicians called it reckless, a dangerous adventure in a foreign country that had nothing to do with Kenya. Critics pointed out that Kenyan police themselves had faced serious allegations of brutality at home. How, they asked, could Kenya go and restore order somewhere else? And there was a deeper question that many Kenyans asked in private, one that was uncomfortable but honest. Was Kenya being used? The United States had pledged $200 million to fund the mission, but America wasn't sending its own soldiers. The world's most powerful military would pay the bill, but African police officers would do the dying. Ruto heard all of it. He acknowledged the concerns, and then he moved forward anyway. He bypassed the court order by signing a direct agreement between the Kenyan government and the Haitian government. The United Nations Security Council gave its formal blessing under Resolution 2699. The mission was called the Multinational Security Support Mission, the MSS, and Kenya was its leader. Other countries promised to contribute. The Bahamas, Jamaica, Belize, Bangladesh, Benin, Guatemala, El Salvador all pledged officers and soldiers. But in the beginning, when the time came to actually show up, most of them were slow. Very slow. Kenya went first. Kenya went almost alone. On June 25, 2024, a plane landed at Toussaint Louverture International Airport in Port-au-Prince. It had just reopened weeks earlier after being seized by gangs. And stepping off that plane, in their uniforms, carrying their weapons, blinking in the Caribbean heat, were Kenyan police officers. A few hundred of them, in one of the most dangerous cities on earth. They did not know the streets. They did not speak French. They did not speak Haitian Creole. The intelligence they had been given was incomplete. The maps were outdated. The rules of engagement were vague. And the gangs they were facing had been fighting in those alleys and rooftops for years. They knew every corner, every hiding place, every escape route. But the Kenyans got to work. Their first mission was to secure the airport, to ensure that planes could land and take off, that humanitarian aid could flow in, that the country was not completely cut off from the world. They set up checkpoints. They ran joint patrols with the Haitian National Police. They cleared roads that gangs had blockaded with burned vehicles and rubble. And then, slowly, they pushed further. Block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. In the brutal heat of Port-au-Prince, Kenyan officers fought their way into gang-controlled territory. They were ambushed from rooftops. They were fired on from alleyways. They conducted raids, arrests, operations at night when the city was dark and dangerous, and nobody could be sure who was a civilian and who was a fighter. In September 2024, President Ruto himself flew to Haiti to visit his officers. He stood with them on the tarmac, looked them in the eye, and told them Kenya was proud of them. He told the world that the mission needed more support, more equipment, more money, more nations sending actual people instead of just making promises. The world was listening, but it was slow to act. Then came February 2025. A Kenyan officer named APC Samuel Tomoy Kayatwai was killed in Port-au-Prince. The news hit Kenya like a punch to the chest. This was not an abstract mission anymore. This was not a political decision made in a boardroom in Nairobi. This was a Kenyan mother losing her son, a Kenyan wife losing her husband, a Kenyan child losing their father. In a foreign country, on a foreign street, in a war that had no front line and no easy enemy to point at. A few weeks later, in March 2025, a second officer was killed. His name was APC Benedict Kabiru. And then, a third officer, Corporal Kennedy Nzuve, made the ultimate sacrifice. 3 Kenyan police officers, 3 families destroyed, 3 names that most of the world would never know. Back in Kenya, the protests grew louder. "Bring them home," people said. "This is not our war. We have lost enough." Some members of parliament stood up and formally demanded the withdrawal of all Kenyan officers from Haiti. But the mission continued. The officers who remained looked at the graves of their colleagues, and they stayed. Slowly, painfully slowly, the situation in Haiti began to shift. The airport stayed open. The seaport was secured. Key roads that had been cut off for months were reopened, and trucks carrying food and medicine began to move again. Displaced families who had fled their neighborhoods started, cautiously, to return home. The Kenyan officers began training Haitian police, teaching them tactics, weapons handling, how to conduct operations against organized criminal militias. Hundreds of Haitian officers received training that they had never had access to before. By early 2026, something happened that almost nobody had predicted. Haiti held a peaceful political transition. Power changed hands without violence. For a country that had known nothing but chaos for 5 years, it was a moment of extraordinary significance. The gangs were not defeated. Haiti was not fixed. Years of rebuilding still lay ahead. But the country was breathing. And that was more than it had been able to do before the Kenyans arrived. On April 27, 2026, Kenya's Interior Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, flew to Port-au-Prince one final time. He stood on the tarmac of Toussaint Louverture Airport, the same airport the Kenyans had fought to keep open, and he oversaw the last Kenyan contingent as they prepared to leave. Haitian police officials were there. International diplomats were there. Along the perimeter fence outside the airport, Haitian civilians gathered to watch. One man, a logistics worker named Yves Samuel, stood quietly at the fence and said something that captured everything. He said, "We saw them every day at checkpoints and roads. Their departure feels like the end of a long chapter." The next evening, April 28, 2026. A Kenya Airways plane touched down at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi at 6:28 in the evening. The last Kenyan officers had come home. There were no fireworks, no massive crowds, just the quiet dignity of officers who had done something extraordinarily difficult in a place most people couldn't find on a map, for a people who were strangers to them, and had done it with professionalism and courage, and at the cost of their own blood.
3 of their colleagues would never make that flight home. 3 names: Samuel Tomoy Ketwai, Benedict Kabiru. Kennedy and Zuve would be carried in the hearts of everyone who served on that mission for the rest of their lives. Kenya went to Haiti when the world would not. Kenya led when powerful nations made excuses. Kenya sent its sons and daughters into one of the most dangerous places on earth, not for oil, not for territory, not for political gain, but because a desperate people needed help and someone had to answer. That is the story of the Kenyan police in Haiti, a mission that was imperfect, underfunded, controversial, and costly. And absolutely, completely worth telling. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, then you already know that history is not just dates and facts in a textbook. History is people, real people with real families who made impossible choices in impossible situations. And there are hundreds more stories just like this one, waiting to be told. This channel exists for one reason, to bring those stories to you. The untold ones, the ones that never made the front page, the ones that deserve to be remembered. So if you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now, because you do not want to miss what is coming next. Every week we bring you real stories of courage, sacrifice, and history that will leave you thinking long after the video ends. And if you have been here before, thank you. Share this video with one person today, just one, because some stories are too important to watch alone. Stay curious, stay informed, and we will see you in the next one.